I am so excited to welcome you to tonight's event. It is our third Spark Series event. We have an amazing set of panelists. And what I'm going to do here is introduce our facilitator, Kevin Sanborn. So Kevin joined the university fairly recently. He is our entrepreneur in residence, so he works with our students and our faculty on innovation and entrepreneurship programming, helping us build partnerships with other organizations in Maine. And Kevin, we're extremely lucky to have Kevin because he's a seasoned business leader. He's had more than 3 decades of experience spanning venture capital, financial services, life sciences, and management consulting. And in fact, in addition to his role as our entrepreneur in residence, Kevin is a general partner and a co-founder of Alchemy Fund, which is an early-stage venture capital firm focused on supporting New England startups outside major tech hubs. So we're very lucky to have Kevin here, and he's the perfect person to facilitate this event today. So Kevin, come on up, and welcome everybody.
As entrepreneur in residence, I have the pleasure of being part of the university's Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And so the mission for our center is to really provide experiential learning opportunities for our students in the areas of entrepreneurship and innovation. And we try to do that in a variety of different ways. We provide workshops on topics like design thinking and 3D printing. We provide access to several maker spaces across the university where students can come and prototype and build new product and service ideas. We help provide access and support for students interested in local and regional pitch competitions, and really provide experiential hands-on learning through entrepreneurships and fellowships with local businesses. In fact, several of the teams that are here tonight that you saw out at the tables are teams that we've been working with, including the Seaweed Nutrition Bar team, the team working with Madeline Point Oysters doing the solar-powered upweller, with the team Storm Tracker working on their inventory management app, and it's been a real pleasure to work with all of them. And then lastly, we really try to provide them opportunities to learn directly from founders and other members of the Maine startup and venture ecosystem. So it's in that last vein, I'd like to welcome you to our panel discussion tonight on building local brands. And we've got the opportunity to hear from 5 founders and leaders of local businesses. Our moderator tonight is Sarah DeLage. She is the Associate Vice President for Communications at UNE. She leads marketing and communication strategy and oversees a team of communications and media relations specialists. She has 20 years of experience in journalism and communication strategy that's given her expertise in storytelling and media strategy. And before she joined us at UNE, she spent 8 years as an on-air reporter at News Center, Maine, reporting on events from government and politics to local stories about Mainers all across the state. And so with that, I'd love to have you help me in welcoming Sarah and our panelists to the stage, and we're very excited to have them here tonight and hear what they have to say.
Thank you, Kevin, and welcome to all of our panelists on the stage. Kevin memorized my bio. That was impressive. I don't even have that memorized. So welcome, everyone, and as everyone's taking their seats, I'd just like to thank you all for being here and for joining us, and for our panelists for taking time out of their very busy schedules. We're here to talk about building local brands, and our panelists this evening represent a variety of local and Maine brands. Tonight, we'll hear from each of them about the opportunities and challenges that come with building a brand in New England and in Maine. And we'll also hear some of the insights that they would offer to those in the audience, including our students, about building a brand. And with that, I will try to quickly introduce all of our panelists so that we have time to get to the questions. Dave Tucci is the president of Aroma Joe's, bringing over 25 years in food and beverage and 15 years in franchising. His leadership is defined by authenticity, continuous improvement, and a relentless commitment to helping others succeed. Known for his hands-on leadership and engaging style, people are drawn to work with him and be part of the teams he builds. Throughout his career, he has been recognized for driving business growth, building strong company culture, and developing passionate teams. At Aroma Joe's, Dave has championed expansion while staying true to the brand's core values of passion, caring, and commitment to excellence. He's also an active voice in the franchising community, advocating for franchisees and the industry's future. With over a decade of bakery experience, Jill Miller started with the support of her husband, the Maine Pie Company, a certified gluten-free dessert company based in Biddeford, Maine. Jill took what she had learned from her 2 previous retail bakeries, the Runcible Spoon in Nyack, New York, and Port Bakery in Kennebunkport, Maine, and her experience as a CPA to create the Maine Pie Company. Knowing just enough to be dangerous, she made the leap into wholesale distribution and set up a certified gluten-free facility in Biddeford. The Maine Pie Company products are distributed nationwide and can be found in the natural, conventional, independent, and e-commerce channels. Tom Ruff is the founder and CEO of Orange Bike Brewing Company, Portland, Maine's first dedicated gluten-free brewery and one of only 14 in the country. Built on a triple bottom line of people, planet, and profit, Orange Bike is a 1% for the Planet member and submitted its B Corp certification application after 4 years in process. Named Maine Entrepreneur of the Year in 2024 and Maine Brand of the Year in 2025, the company is backed by the Maine Venture Fund and IU Ventures. Orange Bike partners with 11 academic institutions and has engaged 72 college students as a living platform for entrepreneurship and applied sustainability. Before Orange Bike, Tom founded and led a nationally recognized healthcare executive search firm for 3 decades before selling it in 2022. Topher Mallory is a purpose-driven business leader and entrepreneur based in Maine. He serves as CEO of Mexicali Blues, a Maine-based retail brand known for its distinctive apparel, jewelry, accessories, and home goods, and for developing a strong omni-channel presence through both physical stores and e-commerce. Under his leadership, the company has expanded significantly while maintaining a community-focused and values-based approach to retail. In addition to his work at Mexicali Blues, Topher is co-founder of Split Rock Distilling, Maine's first certified organic distillery, a venture built from the ground up with a commitment to organic ingredients and local connections. And finally, Michelle Anderson, President and CEO of Junior Achievement of Maine, leads direction, statewide operations, and development initiatives, advancing the organization's mission to inspire and prepare Maine students for career and life success while accelerating economic mobility. With more than 15 years of experience at JA, Michelle began as an intern and progressed through roles of increasing responsibility before becoming president in 2015. Under her leadership, the organization has significantly expanded student reach and revenue with an emphasis on innovation, sustainability, and long-term impact. A lifelong Mainer, Michelle is deeply committed to building a strong future workforce. So with that, a round of applause for all of our panelists for joining us. So the first question that I'd love to hear from you all on, and I'll have all of you just kind of go down the line and speak a little bit about this, is the idea of your brand origin story. And obviously you're not going to tell that whole story tonight, but I think we'd love to hear a bit about what that brand means to Maine, and what problem, passion, or moment led to the creation or growth of your brand. So Dave, I'll start with you and we'll just go down the line.
Yeah, so Aroma Joe's was founded 25 years ago by 2 sets of brothers, they're cousins, and their intent was to create a new coffee experience, not necessarily a brand. Everybody thought they were crazy in Duncan's backyard. They're like, you're going to do what? But what they did was they created this new experience in a very small footprint. The original location was 96 square feet. Think, for the older folks in the room, the Photomat film development hut, right? Looks just like that. And no intercom, no speaker, human engagement, weird, right? Like you're not speaking to a squawk box. Higher quality products with a heightened level of customer service. So that was the differentiator and what was lacking in the environment at that time. And clearly, it was a need because it caught on pretty quick, and they scaled to about 15 locations before franchising.
Jill, what about you?
The Maine Pie Company was started in 2014. Basically, I had a couple other bakeries before this, and we had moved to Maine, and I needed to go back to work. And so I've always loved business. I've always loved small business, and I loved Maine. And so I took what I learned in my retail bakeries, and I wanted to do kind of a spin-off of that. So one day I was in a yoga class, and I was thinking, somebody said to me, oh, I'm going to go buy a pie for Easter. And they started telling me about their pie, and the pie was like $40. And I was like, oh, I can make a pie for you for less than $40, right? And so I started thinking about it more and more. And my husband was celiac. And so he would always eat the center out of the pie and never eat the crust. And so at that point I thought, well, anybody can make a good pie, but not everybody can make a good gluten-free pie. And I knew that it was where the niche was, that I thought, well, yeah, this could go, because I hadn't really ever seen any gluten-free pies out there. In fact, it was sort of at the beginning of the whole gluten-free trend. So I just started playing with recipes, and it just evolved, and just one step at a time, one day at a time. And so we've been in business now going into our 14th year.
Very good. Tom?
For me, I started a gluten-free brewery out of necessity. At age 52, my body imploded and started having a lot of health issues. Was misdiagnosed for close to 2 years. 3 different doctors thought I had Lyme disease, Crohn's disease, autoimmune disease. I've had a lot of skin cancer. They thought my melanoma came back just because my immune system was so irregular. I lost 30 pounds. Food was actually getting stuck in my throat. Bread was getting lodged in my throat. Sick, clinically depressed, scared as hell, like not knowing what's going on with my body, especially thinking that my melanoma was back and this was causing it. But even more scarily, like, the doctors don't know what's wrong. Like, that was scary. I called my nutritionist friend in Los Angeles, who I had known for 40 plus years, and within literally probably 20 seconds of starting to explain my symptoms, she's like, Tom, didn't they test you for celiac? And I'm like, no, nobody tested me for celiac. So she told me about the gluten allergies, went strictly gluten-free. Within 6 months, 90% of my symptoms were completely gone. Within probably 10 months, every single symptom was gone, like changed my life. I used to be a beer person, and to your point, Jill, well, one, I couldn't find a good gluten-free beer. The only ones I could find were sorghum-based, and after having, lived through the whole craft beer boom, they were so disgusting I couldn't even drink them. And then one day, someone had shipped me some beer from Seattle, Washington, a company called Ghostfish, and when I cracked that open, everything, I can remember it very clearly, the crack of the can, the psh, the pour, the foam, and the smell, because the sorghum beers, the smell even was so disgusting. But this was the type of beer that I remember drinking. And that's when the light bulb went off, that someone out there is making a delicious beer, and I wouldn't have to compromise. And yeah, I can talk more to the story later, but fast forward, I met with the head, Sean Sullivan, the head of the Maine Brewers Guild. He introduced me to Alan Pugsley, who, for those that know, Alan was the co-founder of Shipyard. David Geary recruited Alan to Maine from England in 1983 to start Geary's. The folks at Gritty's recruited him over, then Fred Forsley took him down to, I see someone cheering back there, Federal Jackson. He and Fred Forsley started Shipyard together. So Alan helped me to build the brewery. I've been working on this for 5 years. We've been officially in business for just over 2 years.
Topher?
There's more than one person creating a great beer now, and you are them. Nice work. Tastes as good as your description of that other beer. Incredible. Mexicali Blues started in 1988. Pete Erskine was the founder. Pete and Kim Erskine and their 3 children are a huge part of the company today, and it grew from what was just a love of travel and a knowledge of Maine and wanting to bring something funky back to now empowering artisans from around the world in our effort to purvey their merchandise here in a really fun and unique environment. We became a certified B Corp 2 years ago. We have 6 locations, and over the 20 years that I've been experiencing and a part of it, It's just been a wonderful evolution of the product, the manufacturer and artisan force behind it, and an incredible group of Mainers that work within the stores and now within our mini campus in Newcastle, Maine. And then the stakeholders, which are all of us. I think that what makes Mexicali Blues truly unique is how much we have relied on the community as our North Star here in Maine. For Split Rock and Royal Rose, it was out of my day-to-day as working with things other people have made and purveying them, and I really wanted to hold and experience something that I had made every part of. And similar to the beer analogy in Maine, there was a huge craft boom. A friend and I who climbed a lot together, Matt Page, were drinking bourbon after climbing and celebrating a route we had done, and said, why is nobody making this in Maine? And we found out why. It's a very different business. It's much harder, and the regulatory structure is an uphill battle. And through that, as we made our first batches, we noticed that organic grain was, from our perspective, creating a better taste profile. It was also a farming community and something we wanted to support. And here we are 10 years later in July with doors open, 12 years into the project. And we, along that journey, also noticed that for us, we're drinking a little less as we have aged. And we acquired Royal Rose Organic Syrups 8 years ago. And that line, we built a separate building on our facility, also right behind the distillery. And so all of that manufacturing and jobs came from Brooklyn to Maine. And we've been expanding that for the last couple of years. It's been a beautiful symbiotic relationship where these brands have a lot in common. And during the acquisition, we also started making bitters out of the hope that one day we would have a completely organic old fashioned, which was the drink that we started this all around. So today we have an aromatic bitter that's organic and made from scratch here in Maine, a bourbon that's now 8 to 10 years old and made from scratch here in Maine, along with a simple syrup that's made with unbleached organic demi-arrow sugar and a whole host of other flavorings that it's offered in, including saffron, which I never would have thought someone would grow here, but because of relationships with MAFCA, we are able to get 3 farms in the state growing it. I'm getting wordy. I'm going to hand it off.
We should have done some taste testing, right? I'm hungry now. Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Anderson, and Junior Achievement of Maine began here in Portland at Portland High School. It started as an after-school club for high school kids to learn all about business. And they would bring what we called at the time a business advisor into the classroom. The students after school would they'd learn all about business acumen, leadership. They would develop their own companies. They would learn everything from the manufacturing to the business side, finance side of that business. They would actually create their product, go door to door and sell it. And then at the end of this experience, they would liquidate the company. And in fact, today, I will still hear from people that will say, oh, Junior Achievement, I developed a birdhouse, or I made, and they'll tell me about their company, which is really, really cool. It wasn't until about the 80s that Junior Achievement started to integrate into school districts. And Junior Achievement's unique because we're a nonprofit organization and actually worldwide. And we're part of Junior Achievement USA. So here in the United States, there is 97 different Junior Achievement operations, each our own independent run nonprofit organization. And it's all about inspiring and preparing students, kindergarten through high school, for life and career success. So again, back in the 80s, we integrated with school districts, and we provide hands-on learning experiences to educators and students. I like to say we're kind of the bridge between education and workforce, and helping kids really understand the career pathways and industries that make up Maine. You know, you can't be what you can't see. And so the earlier we can start to instill the skill sets and mindsets for kids to become successful adults, no matter what success looks like for them, and introduce them to the career pathways that exist here in Maine, it's about making sure that the talent can stay here in Maine, and we can develop the next generation of entrepreneurs and workforce that really make Maine great.
Thanks, Michelle, and thanks, everybody. They're really inspiring founding stories and origin stories. Obviously, you've all found a good deal of success here in Maine. I'd love to hear about the Maine and northern New England business environment. So what are the opportunities that come along with setting up a business or running a nonprofit in Maine and in New England, and what are some of the challenges? Dave, we'll start with you again.
Yeah. Obviously, Mainers are very passionate, right? And they're very loyal. So I think the opportunity is that if you can create a product that is resonating, right, and is consistent, Mainers are going to follow. And at Aroma Joe's, we're a franchise model, right? So we need franchisees or people that are looking to get into business for themselves, but not by themselves, and they're doing that through the franchise model. Mainers are hard workers, right, and they're dedicated. So it was a very rich environment for Aroma Joe's to grow the brand via the franchising model.
Great. Jill?
The Maine Pie Company is distributed throughout the United States, and one thing that I have found is that any Maine products are really highly thought of throughout the United States. They're considered the best quality. People love, people in California, all over the United States love Maine products. And so because of that, Maine also has a really good artisanal, we make a lot of artisanal products here. And because of that, it's easy, it's not real easy, but it's kind of easier to get your product looked at or placed because of the reputation. What I find what is challenging is where we're located a lot of times. We have a distribution model. We're distributed throughout the United States. And so that, because we're so far north, and we're not like in the middle of the United States or anything, freight and shipping, it can be very expensive. So that adds on to the cost of your product. I also agree with you about the labor force. Our employees are very loyal and hardworking, and it has a lot to do with the integrity of the people of Maine.
I'll piggyback off of that. I spoke several months ago with Maine Biz, and I heard someone comment Maine punches above its weight class nationally. And hearing you say that reminds me too, we only distribute here in Maine currently, but we moved up to Maine to raise our daughter. I was living in New York City. I'm from Indiana originally. I come from a dairy farming family. Our dairy farm just turned 119 years. My cousin's still farming. It's a small independent dairy farm, which is almost impossible in this day and age to actually survive because it's all corporate. But yeah, one summer I have a 9-year-old daughter now, but I was roughly my daughter's age. My father was a professor at Indiana University, was invited to teach a summer session at the University of Maine, Orono. And my mom loaded up our Chevy station wagon, the wood-paneled station wagon, drove us 3 boys to Maine. And while my father was teaching at UMaine, Orono, my mom took us 3 boys exploring the state of Maine. And it was that one summer in Maine that resonated and stuck with me. And I had started another healthcare company 30 plus years ago in Los Angeles and New York, and we had offices in 5 cities around the country. So I've seen the different business climates around the country. When our daughter was born, we did not want to raise her in New York. We did not want to raise her in Los Angeles. And thankfully, my wife agreed to come up here to raise our daughter. And shortly after COVID hit, I took a year off to be a stay-at-home dad with my father. Shortly after that, my health issues started, and hence the idea to start the brewery. But when I started pursuing this, what I found, the response I received from our community is unlike anything I've ever experienced in my now 40 years of business. The state of Maine has invested in our brewery 2 times. We just received a second investment from the state of Maine in the Maine Venture Fund. We received a grant from MTI, Maine Technology Institute, to develop our non-alcoholic beer program. We have the first and only gluten-free non-alcoholic beer in the country, and we are backed by MTI. They don't know it yet, but we're going to be coming back for a massive grant request because we need like $500,000 for pasteurization equipment to scale our non-alcoholic program. We received a 40% capital seed tax credit from the Finance Authority of Maine, so anyone that invested in our brewery received a 40% tax credit on their taxes, which is a huge, again, testament to the state of Maine. Coastal Enterprises, Inc. is another quasi-state-led financial institution. When we were out of money and we were over budget, they loaned us another $200,000 and were able to get us through a really tough period of the business. And since then, just the support that we have received from the state of Maine, and it so much reminds me, the people, the hardworking, the core values remind me so much of the people back home in Indiana where I was raised, and I'm just really proud and thankful to be here.
Thanks, Topher.
In an effort not to repeat, I would echo again everything that has been said. I think that Maine is an incredible springboard for brands, and it is one part the people, one part the geography, and absolutely one part the brand. From a challenges, which has been spoken to a little less, I think it's an interesting moment for Maine right now as there are a handful of wonderful brands and a huge community of a lot of brands and people, and Maine has been found. And 20 years ago or 30 years ago, I think there was a different perspective. Maybe then people were saying something similar, but now there are more people, and cost of living and affordability and all of these are big challenges for small companies that are providing, in the beginning, only a few jobs and are not always as lucrative as others. And even as they develop, there's always going to be the front line of retail and restaurants and housing and meeting wage standards and livability are a big deal. And to the organizations that have been named and a handful of others, as well as certifications like B Corp certification that will help small businesses find and navigate these waters. It's also been a big part of Maine to have that support system when you have a challenge around something like housing.
I'd say the Maine community, Mainers love to give back, which is pretty incredible. We as a nonprofit organization rely so heavily on volunteers. Like there's no junior achievement without the volunteers. They are the ones that go into classrooms that are inspiring and preparing kids to think about their futures, right? They're sharing their own life and work experiences with the next generation. And so I would say, I feel very fortunate that Mainers do give of their time. And, we saw a little dip during COVID, and our model obviously completely shifted with COVID. We could no longer go into classrooms, right? But it was so amazing that within days, volunteers were creating career videos and taking some of our programs and making them virtual. And then how quickly we could bounce back and get right back into the classroom. It doesn't matter. Every industry that I talk to, every industry needs a workforce. And so for us, a big piece of the work we're trying to do is ensure that our volunteer base is truly reflective of all the different industries and job functions and people that make Maine so great. From a nonprofit lens, just the industry in Maine, it's quite surprising. 1 in 6 people work at a nonprofit organization in Maine. So this industry is fast growing, and there's so many incredible nonprofit organizations doing really powerful work to support so many different types of Mainers. And so I think one challenge for us can be how do you stay different? How do you stay relevant when there's so many different competing priorities? But it has been incredible to see just the sheer number of volunteers grow each year, which is tremendous.
That's great. This next question is about growth. So I'd love to hear about a growth moment in your organization or in your company that fundamentally changed things for you. And I'd invite anybody to jump in on this who wants to, and we can have a conversation about it.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So as I mentioned, I told a little bit about the front end story of Aroma Joe's and the founders and starting the brand. Their catalyst for growth was pursuing the franchise model. And that's really what launched the brand into what it is today. We're currently have 133 locations in 8 states, and that's a much different business model than 4 cousins making coffee and having a good time in southern Maine. So for us, franchising was the growth catalyst.
Anyone else? Growth moment?
I mentioned becoming a certified B Corp, and for us at Mexicali Blues, the inspiration was a lot of succession planning and things that were going on within the company at that moment. And the intriguing part and why it was a huge cultural shift was the engagement of the staff. It was not the goodness that we embody as a business, the benefits and the philanthropic pieces, the product story and transparency. All those had been there a long time, but what changed internally as we moved from a board that was ownership based to including outside parties and building committees inside was this beautiful voice and a huge evolution of how we started strategically planning with our interns and sales associates having a voice that was equal in many cases to my own as CEO, which was a really big pivot and an incredible catalyst for a new kind of growth. It wasn't just job creation or new stores. It was trying to really think about things as stakeholders.
Anyone else?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite stories. I have 2 of our former intern Chloe, who's now our full-time marketing and our operations person. She was our UMaine fellow, and Evan here, who's our USM intern, data analytics, information systems, who we're hiring full-time when he graduates. So about a year and a half ago, we've officially been opening 2 years, 3 months. We won a couple medals right out of the gate. Our first year, we won 2 medals at the Great American Beer Festival, the biggest beer festival in the country. And this last year, we won a silver medal at the World Beer Cup, the biggest beer competition in the world. And I wouldn't say I was getting cocky, but we were proud, and we didn't share it actually for quite a while because there's a lot of performative. Especially, we just submitted B Corp certification. First of all, I got to shake your hand for getting B Corp certified. We've been working on B Corp certification for 4 years. We just submitted just 2 weeks ago. The process to become B Corp certified is one of the most challenging things I've ever done in my life. 200 or 300 some questions that you're analyzed by, but that's a different story. But anyways, yeah, we were getting a lot of attention, and a lot of the big distributors from Boston, New York were calling on us. They were showing up at the brewery, wanting to carry our product. And we kind of immediately, we're doing it, distribution, we're bringing on a distributor, we're going big. And Alan Pugsley, does anyone in here know Alan Pugsley by chance? Yeah. So if you know him, he's a very intense, serious British man, and he's a master brewer, biochemist from England. And we're actually, people don't realize, we are Alan's 100th brewery that he's helped to open. Wow. Magic Hat, The Shed, Dogfish Head. He taught Sam Calgione from Dogfish Head how to brew beer. Yeah, he's in Shanghai, China, Africa, the Johnny Appleseed of craft beer. And the craft brew hype, when the New England IPAs, there's this craze 10, 12, 13 years ago, and some of the younger brewers were kind of dissing on the old historical brewers. And it's really interesting now, that whole hype, New England hazy, how hazy can you make these IPAs? That trend is trending down, and it's coming back to the traditional, the classics, the European, the Pilsners, the lagers. And so Alan's absolutely brilliant, but we actually thought we knew a little more than Alan Pugsley. And Alan, I'll never forget, he got in my grill. And I don't think I've ever heard so many F-bombs. Sorry, Alan and Alan's family. But as far as us bringing on a distributor, and he essentially said, it will bankrupt you if you bring on a distributor at this point of your brewery and where you're at. You do not have the infrastructure, you do not have the equipment. And he brought us back down to earth very quickly. And we were like this close. We had met with all the distributors, we had made our decision, we had picked the one that we were going with, and that's when he sat me down. And so yeah, thankfully we did not do that. And we've been self-distributing, again, here in this beautiful state of Maine. So within the last 2 years, we're now in 245 wholesale accounts here in Maine, all via self-distribution. So we're able to capture, 50, 60+% margins versus 3 to 8% margins when you sign on with the distributor in the beer business. And ironically enough, today, Evan, our USM intern, and I, we officially launched. Hannaford just brought us into 25 of their stores. And today was our first day calling on Hannaford. And all via self-distribution, and that was another thing. Typically, Hannaford, they do self-distribution. They prefer working through a distributor just because they're so large. And, to Hannaford's credit, if anyone's familiar, there has been a lot of negative publicity and PR against Hannaford and the parent company. And the stories are interesting, but it's like a third party, unrelated, not here in Maine. And for us, the response and respect that we have received from the Hannaford Corporation, and it's not performative talk, we support local. For the last 6 months, we've been onboarding with Hannaford Corporation. I've met probably at least 30 to 40 people from the organization, and they are bringing other people in, introducing us. They have rolled out the red carpet to Orange Bike, a small, self-distribution, and we're still fighting for profitability. So, it's in reach, but this was a historic moment from our, not to be dramatic, but for us, 25 Hannaford stores, and we are looking for a full-time delivery driver if anyone. And I am serious about that. Our delivery driver just moved to Boston, so if anyone's looking for a job, I'd love to talk to them. So yeah, it was a lesson learned not to go on with the distributor, and this for us was when it turned, like we were finally ready after, to Alan's point, 2 years of preparation. We just completed our third expansion capacity-wise. We just doubled our production capacity. We installed our equipment in January. We hired 2 more brewers. They're trained up. We're brewing 7 days a week, and today is day 1 of Hannaford. So we were actually prepared. Lesson learned. Everything Alan's told me, I say, yes, Alan, we'll do that.
That's a moment. That's great. Anyone else want to weigh in on that one? I think with that, I have one more closing question for everybody before we open it up to questions, which I hope some of our students will raise their hands. And that is, what does the future hold for Maine brands? Anyone?
I guess it's me.
It's you, Dave.
What does the future hold for Maine brands? I think, over the last few years, there's been a huge influx of people that want to come to Maine because of the uniqueness and because of the people and what makes Maine special. And I think that there's some cons to that, right? Certainly we've seen the real estate market get a little wacky, but it's bringing more consumers in, right? So whether you're in retail, whether you're in production, there's just more consumers. And I think that the economic outlook for Maine is positive, and I think that's going to support the growth, and that everything that my colleagues here are trying to achieve, and some of the students that I spoke to today trying to launch their products and their companies, the opportunities are there, and I think pre-COVID, it was a tough climate, right? The people weren't here. There was a lot of migration out of the state. But I think the future's bright in Maine to build a brand, to rely on Mainers that are really passionate and core customers.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Jill.
When I first moved to Maine, I was really, really struck. We moved up from New York, and I was really struck by the ingenuity of the people in Maine. I was actually really surprised with all the great quality products that Mainers were turning out. And because of that, I agree. I think that the future for brand building in Maine is great because of the reputation, the hard work, the quality that everybody produces. I see it as just growing and growing. So.
Tom, I'd like to get your perspective as an entrepreneur, business person in another state. The one thing that I find, and I'm a transplant, even though I've lived in the state for 25 years. My wife's from Caribou, and she's like, "You're from away. Don't say you're from Maine." The collaboration, right? People are very open and supportive of their friends, of their neighbors, of their colleagues, of their business colleagues, right? There's so many people that are willing to help. And I think in other states and other communities, it's like, I'm not telling you my brewing secret. I'm not telling you the potential pitfalls that are in front of you. It's a very open and collaborative environment. And I think that's going to foster growth.
And I've found that 20-fold. I was just telling Evan today in the car calling on Hannaford, we saw Keeley Constructions. Anyone know Keeley Construction? They're a Maine construction firm, old school. Jim Keeley has become a dear friend, mentor. He's had the company 40 plus years. We were about to go bankrupt from our first contractor, way over budget, expenses had gotten out of control. We had a $225,000 bill on our construction that we had yet. We had loans, Androscoggin Bank, another B Corp is our banker, and again, they took a risk on us and we got a massive investment from them for loans to finance this. But we had exhausted all of our resources. We're running out of options to pay our contractor. I met with Jim, he's like, "Tom," he's like, "we'll figure it out. How many years would it take you to pay me back?" And I said, a lot. But realistically, I said, I'm sure we can get the money, but he's like, "Let's do this. Can you pay it over 2 years? I'll work out a low interest payment plan, and you pay me back over a 2-year period." And New York City, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Phoenix, Dallas, that would never happen in any of the other cities where I had my business. None of this would happen. I told Evan today, our Northern Lights Mechanical, they do all of our stainless steel equipment, our piping. We had some equipment broke. We had run over. It was probably another $50,000, $60,000. It wouldn't, just after we had invested a lot of money, out of money, banks wouldn't loan us. Chris, the owner of Northern Lights, I called him and I said, "I can't pay you right now." And he's like, "Tom, I've been in your shoes and it doesn't feel good. Pay me when," it makes me emotional because for those that have started business, they're like, "Freak, I have a mortgaged home." At the time I've got a 6-year-old daughter. I'm like, what the hell am I doing starting a gluten-free brewery? And to have this man say, "Pay me when you can pay me," that doesn't happen anywhere. And I've dealt with with my other businesses, I've had the opposite where I've gotten into legal battles, lawyers. This does not happen anywhere else, in my opinion, other than Indiana. But it's a very special place, and the future is very bright. And I think there are so many resources here in Maine, almost to a fault, and I say that a lot. There's so many good organizations doing great work, especially in the business community. It's almost too much. It's hard to navigate. And I haven't shared, we're actually open source sharing our entire business model on how we're building our company. And, you know, again, that philosophy of sharing, we've had so many people helping us. Rising Tide, Bellflower, in a bind, broken part, didn't have money. You know, the facility manager, Rising Tide, shows up when we put out the bat signal, and he shows up with the equipment, left it within an hour, didn't ask for anything in return. You know, it's pretty remarkable. That doesn't happen elsewhere.
It is. It's pretty special.
I'll piggyback just one quick story that's similar, and it is such an incredible part of Maine. I'll start with, I have 2 daughters, they're 12 and 8, and they remind me all the time that I'm from away. My wife and I both, my wife's also very honest about it. I'm usually the one trying to hide it, and an 8-year-old is in a humbling, you're from away. And I think it's such an honor to be here. It's such an incredible thing. I remember our first Instagram post was these 5-gallon barrels of bourbon at Split Rock, and we said, see you in 3 years or something like that. And it was a matter of 5 minutes before Luke Davidson at Maine Craft started texting me and said, hey, I don't want to be that person. You want to talk on the phone for a minute? And I was like, well, I've met Luke a bunch. He's been up and running for years. There must be some value to this. He said, you're not going to leave that bourbon in there for 3 years. I said, of course, we're aging it. He's like, that's a 5-gallon barrel, Topher. Its age will be, it'll be so bitter, so over oak, there's no chance. You could maybe go 3 months in a 5-gallon barrel. There's a tipping point at 30 gallons where the ratio of surface area to gallons is right, and you can almost indefinitely age or as long as you want to put up with a loss. But it was incredible that there was just one story after another for us that's so similar, whether it's someone showing up, willing to weld, you try and give them a bottle and they refuse because you haven't opened your door, and they know as an entrepreneur where you're at without any word being spoken. And I'll end with why I think that it is such a wonderful moment. You asked all of us to come here to spout advice, and walking through that UNE room full of incredible entrepreneurial stories, I took as much inspiration as I am here from the conversation around seaweed bars and solar-powered oyster equipment. I mean, this is why Maine is going to rock in the next decade.
So well said. So well said. I feel the same way. And it's so inspiring to hear all of your stories. And I think I would just end with, you know, I get asked a lot, what does the next generation workforce need to know? And, you know, for us, it's really ensuring that students have those durable, like transferable skills, right? Can you critically think? Can you problem solve? Can you take a growth mindset, an entrepreneurial mindset? Are you agile? Can you be flexible? I think those, knowing with the introduction of AI, I mean, we don't know what the workforce is going to look like in the next 5-10 years, but these like core durable skills, some of them are calling them human skills now. These are the skill sets that are going to be so important to instill in the next generation so they can be you guys, the next entrepreneurs and business leaders that run our state. So a big thank you for allowing a nonprofit lens to be part of this conversation. It's very inspiring to hear your stories.
Absolutely. Thank you. With that, we have time for a couple of questions. So there are a couple of people who have mics that will come up to you. So just raise your hand and they will come on over.
Hi, how's it going? My name is Ben. First off, I just wanted to thank you guys for coming in today. I know you guys are surely busy enough as it is. As a student, not from the New England area, and just having these welcoming stories is great to hear. Going off of that, I know you briefly touched on AI. I think we could spend a whole series talking about that. But I'd just like to ask, how can a student like me and my fellow classmates, how can we work in the industry and be able to get jobs, internships, all this while competing with computers, technology? We have robots that are taking into supermarkets and taking away shoppers, Door Dashers, whatever it is. How can someone like me, someone like us, work in the industry and continue to get involved with such a strong passion to do well and provide? Thank you.
It's a great question. Anyone want to jump in?
From my perspective, and inside of our operational model, and I had mentioned the differentiator for Aroma Joe's was, or one of the differentiators was not having an intercom, not speaking to a non-human interface, right, was a differentiator, and we support that. I think AI is not going away, and there's certain a technological component where, yeah, we're scanning our own groceries. There was a point in my life where I used to bag groceries, and I never thought that, like, you know, we don't know what the future is going to hold. But I think for yourself, and my advice to you is I would utilize the tool. AI is just another tool, right? And those that are using that tool are going to outperform the human sitting next to you. I wouldn't worry about it replacing you. I'd worry about your colleague sitting next to you replacing you because they have embraced the tool and they can be more efficient at whatever task that they're working on.
Anyone else?
That's such great advice. Such great advice. I would say too, networking opportunities like this, like ask for a business card, go on informational interviews. People love to talk about themselves. So if you are like simply, I want to hear about your journey, I want to hear about your career path, people love to give out advice. So as much of that you can do. Maine is, I mean, there's like 1 degree of separation in Maine to everyone. And so just putting yourself out there and going on those informational interviews, getting in networking opportunities like you are here and being able to meet folks and practice those skills is essential.
I'm just going to add in, I too am worried about AI, and I changed my mindset recently when someone was recounting phones being passed out in a classroom so that they could show them how a rotary worked. And it was a first-hand story, which blew my mind. And I remember being here in Maine at a point where there were party lines where you had to know your ring, multiple people were on the same phone line. And all this to say, I think that learning the tool, and the other is pick up the phone. I find that more of the people that I work with that are strong with durable skills and things that are going to differentiate you are the ones that have strong eye contact, do not hesitate to pick up the phone and call me or somebody else in an industry. And it's a big part of, I think, from what I heard from Tom, his journey, and I know my own. I mean, we called Four Roses when we didn't even have an LLC, and I got the head distiller on the phone and was so starstruck, and he just wanted to talk about himself. He told me all about how one-story rick houses were the answer. And I was like, that's perfect. I've got a garage. It was incredibly relatable, and you'd be shocked at how much people want to talk and also how much they will respect you for the gumption of just calling them.
Emotional intelligence, communication skills, in my book, is number one. If you can't communicate with a diverse group of people and multi-generationals, then you're going to have a problem. That's my advice to any young adult looking to get not necessarily into entrepreneurship, right? Not into business, but to succeed in any field. You have to be able to communicate effectively with a diverse group of people.
All right, I think we have time for one more question.
Hi, my name is Christian. Thank you for being here. My question is just, what is something that you wish you knew before you entered the workforce?
To keep my mouth shut.
After just telling them to pick up the phone?
Right. Well, and I'm half joking, but I'm half serious, right? WAIT, wait, why am I talking? I think you get in situations and we're quick to jump in. We're quick to want to speak. And sometimes there's power in silence, and there's knowledge in silence, and pausing and listening gives you more power than actually speaking. That's the one thing I've learned over my years.
I'd add two relatable to that. Don't meet crisis with crisis. And that is built off your weight. And yeah, I'm just going to leave it there. Don't meet crisis with crisis.
I would say it's okay to say no. I'm kind of a recovering people pleaser, and I work with so many different organizations, and I have a 30-member board of directors, And it's okay to say no sometimes. I mean, saying yes to everything, you're not really doing anything super well. And so at the end of the day, it's just going to cost you, your team, too much. And so it's okay to say no.
Yeah, I see my team shaking their head at me, and that's taken me 58 years. And has anyone in here read the book Essentialism by chance? Yeah.
I read it once a year.
Yeah. That was a pivotal book for me. And there's another book, 4,000 Weeks. And essentially, the average human has 4,000 weeks left to live. And it puts things in perspective very quickly. I have a 9-year-old daughter, and I found myself very much being a people pleaser. You know, we're a triple bottom line, a social enterprise. We do a lot to address the toxic culture in beer with sexism, racism, misogyny, and we've taken a clear stand on who we are and what we stand for. With that, you know, comes responsibility, and there's a lot of requests coming at us now to the tune of 10, 20, 30 a week for money, sponsorship, but there's also like some of our community partners that are really scared right now, in hiding, going through a very, very difficult time. And I've been reflecting a lot lately on just going back to, it's ironic, my childhood and my values, and just, to me, it's not political. It's human decency and human dignity, and just our civic obligation to support our community. And we found ourselves, and I shouldn't say me, I was saying yes to almost everything coming at us, to be a people pleaser, putting in 100-hour weeks, exhausted, doing everything half. And I was embarrassed by what I was doing and what I was putting my team through, by all the things that I was missing because I was saying yes to everything. So it's okay to say no. Yeah. Oh, wait, sorry. To your question, first of all, I used to be you 40 years ago. I would stand up, even though I was scared as hell, in a room with a lot of people. But if I had something that was interesting to me, I stood up, and even though I was trembling and my heart racing, I would still stand up, and I would ask my question. And even that, taking that stand and the way you articulated, you know, what you're feeling in this world and what's going on, keep doing that. Keep finding you. Another thing, I just got in Evan's Grill, our intern just was maybe yesterday. Get your frickin' LinkedIn profile going. And I kid you not, here in Maine, more than anywhere else in the country, the Maine Venture Fund, when we received our first investment from them, Joe Powers, the executive director, his big thing is, anyone in Maine will meet you for a coffee. You have to ask. And he encouraged me to start reaching out to different leaders, organizations, and people that I respected and asked to meet for coffee. Every single person I reached out to, and I'm guessing that first year, over 40 to 50 people, at some point over the year or two, some took longer than the others, but almost every time it was an immediate, sure, where do you want to meet? And I've never experienced anything that in my life. Asked to meet for a coffee.
At Aroma Joe's.
Jill, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing that I learned throughout the time so far with my business is that something would happen in my business and I would always say, oh, it's a bad thing or it's a good thing, and I learned that I learned to step back and not overreact and try to give myself a couple of days to process. And what I found out is that what seems really, really good may not be really, really good. And what seems really, really bad at the moment may not be really, really bad. And so I have taken more or less the wait and see attitude, not forever, of course, but so I can give myself enough time to process it. I remember when I first didn't get an account, I was like devastated. But as time went on, I was like, oh, it's a good thing I didn't get that account because we couldn't have handled it anyway. And so I guess it's just not putting, good and bad, judgments on everything. It's just what is, and then you just continue to go forward.
It's great advice.
Can I add one more on
Yes.
that? My father, he passed away 24 years ago. He was my best friend, mentor, but his big thing was making lemonade out of lemons. And to that point, it was a year ago, our head brewer got the wrong grain order for one of our recipes. We had been working on a dark Czech lager. And, actually, I take that back. It was for our Oktoberfest, which we had just won a silver medal at the Great American Beer Festival. And we were so excited for this beer again. And we had a timeline to get it in and get labeling on the cans. Federal government, there's a lot you have to go through. And they sent the wrong frickin' grains, and we were crushed. And Jason, he actually liked, we had never brewed with those grains before, but he liked what he saw in those grains, so he decided to do a different recipe. And he did a dark Czech lager. And that dark Czech lager won the silver medal at the World Beer Cup in 2025. And again, I was freaked out, to Jill's point, like, what, the wrong grains? And I'm like, we're gonna, all this revenue we lost with our Oktoberfest, and that's something too, like Pugsley taught me early on, but it took a couple years to get it. Like now we walk in and a pipe burst and the brewery floor is flooded, and of course it did. Like 2 years ago, I would have been like a nervous wreck. But now just letting things roll a little more, not taking ourselves or myself so seriously. And another one of my father's favorite sayings, everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for all these wonderful insights and for answering all of these questions. Thank you to our audience and especially to our students. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.